The Dominion fleet descended on the outlying colony like a pack of carrion beasts circling a wounded animal. Plasma fire lit the skies, glassing the surface of farmlands that had once fed thousands. To the colonists below, it was terror, but to the alien admiral overseeing the carnage, it was monotony. Zarek lounged in his command chair, mandibles flexing with irritation rather than excitement, his voice carrying a note of disdain as he addressed his bridge crew. Another human world reduced to ash. Another lesson unlearned by these creatures. He gestured lazily toward the holographic projection of burning settlements. Why do they persist? They have no army worth the name, no defenses worthy of respect. Yet here they are, squealing, fighting, dying. An admirable stubbornness, wasted. One of his officers chittered a laugh, sharp and metallic. Perhaps they breed too quickly to know despair, my lord. If their fertility is their greatest weapon, then I fear for your harem. The bridge erupted in dry, bitter laughter. Zarek allowed himself the faintest twitch of amusement. He was not a cruel leader by Dominion standards, but cruelty was the currency of empire, and mockery was its language. He had grown up in halls where conquest was praised as the only true art, where weakness was hunted out and extinguished without mercy. To him, humanity was not even a rival species, they were theater. Below, resistance fighters staged a last stand, attempting to hold a transport hub. Zarek barely watched as his ground troops butchered them. The humans' weapons were outdated slug throwers, their courage admirable but irrelevant. He almost admired the tenacity of one figure, a woman who refused to drop her rifle even when encircled. She spat a curse as plasma seared through her chest. His gaze lingered only for a heartbeat. In her death, he saw what he always saw: waste. Mark their leaders, Zarek ordered coolly. Make examples. Their myths should be short-lived. The command executed. Dominion banners fluttered over the ruined colony within hours. Yet there was no celebration, only weariness among his crew. This was not conquest, it was extermination of pests. His officers spoke openly of boredom. Victories had become too easy, too predictable. Perhaps it is time, said Commander Vartel, his second-in-command, to strike at the heart. This piecemeal suppression gains us little honor. The humans cling to their cradle world like insects. Burn Earth itself, and the swarm collapses. A murmur rippled across the bridge. It was dangerous talk, but alluring. Earth had been left untouched not out of fear, but out of strategy. The Dominion considered it unnecessary. The colonies fell easily, their destruction symbolic enough. Yet the idea had lingered in Zarek's mind, unspoken until now. He turned slowly toward his commander. And if the cradle proves harder than expected? He asked, his tone more mocking than cautious. Vartel smirked, mandibles clicking. Then we exterminate it, as we have all the others. One world or another. What difference does it make? They all burn the same. The Council of War formed swiftly. Senior officers gathered in the dim chamber, shadows stretching across their exoskeletal features. The debate carried more arrogance than strategy. A few voiced hesitation, supply lines, the risk of overextending, but their words drowned beneath waves of scorn. Earth was seen as nothing more than another farm ripe for culling, its destruction a final performance to end the human farce. Zarek sat at the head, silent at first, measuring their bravado. He knew the Empire's arrogance better than anyone, for he embodied it. Yet somewhere beneath the veneer of confidence, a spark of unease flickered. He remembered the stubborn human woman who had fallen still clutching her weapon. He dismissed the thought before it could grow into doubt. Very well, he declared, voice low but final. We end this nuisance. Earth will be struck, and with it, the last of humanity's illusions. Ready the fleet. The words were greeted with satisfied hisses, but unease lingered like smoke. Zarek himself felt it as the fleet aligned in formation, as wormhole gates opened and stars twisted to reveal the distant blue sphere hanging against the void. The sight should have thrilled him. One decisive blow to cement his legacy, but it only deepened that spark of unease. The Terran homeworld rotated calmly, oblivious, fragile. From orbit, it looked defenseless. The alien officers mocked its oceans, its clouds, its greenness, comparing it to a child's toy. They spoke of how swiftly it would collapse, how easily its people would break when their sanctuary fell. Zarek forced himself to nod, to smirk, to share in their derision. Yet his compound eyes lingered too long on the image of that world, as though searching for something unseen. "Begin the assault," he ordered at last. The fleet's engines roared to life, energy building in weapons banks, trajectories locked. Silence fell across the command deck, the hush before annihilation. Zarek leaned forward, his claws tightening against the armrests. He told himself it was anticipation. He told himself it was hunger for conquest. But beneath the rehearsed contempt, a colder question gnawed at him. What if Earth did not burn like the others? The order was given, and the first volley prepared to fire. The Dominion had chosen its next victim, blind to the fact that it had just chosen its doom. The Dominion fleet slipped into high orbit above Earth, its formation in a wall of black metal blotting out constellations. The humans below had no warning sirens, no panicked broadcasts. From the alien perspective, silence meant fear, submission. To Admiral Zarek, it was confirmation of everything he had believed. Humanity was primitive, paralyzed, incapable of resistance. "Targets acquired," Vartel announced. His voice carried the smug certainty of a predator about to feast. "We'll dismantle their satellites first, strip them of sight and voice. After that, the planet is ours." Zarek nodded absently, his gaze fixed on the blue sphere turning slowly beneath them. "Make it swift. There is no honor in tormenting insects." But as the first energy beams lanced outward, something shifted. A ripple shimmered across the void like a mirage, and suddenly the targets they had locked were no longer there. Satellites reappeared on new vectors, defenses snapping into position as though choreographed. For the first time in decades, confusion marred Dominion instruments. "What is this?" one officer hissed, recalibrating controls. "Their systems should be centuries behind ours, yet they evade our scans." Before Zarek could respond, a transmission cut across all frequencies. The voice that filled the bridge was calm, composed, without even a hint of panic. "This is Terran Command. You are trespassing in sovereign space. Disengage and withdraw immediately. No further warnings will be issued." The words carried no bravado, no threats. Just certainty. The bridge erupted in laughter, officers exchanging barbed remarks about human arrogance. Vartel leaned back, amused. "They mimic our tone but lack the strength to enforce it. A child threatening its parent." Zarek forced a smirk, yet unease coiled tighter in his chest. That voice, so measured, so unshaken, sounded nothing like the desperate pleas he expected. Moments later, reality shifted again. A shadow emerged at the edge of Earth's orbit, growing larger, swallowing starlight. At first, the Dominion thought it an illusion, some anomaly of sensors. Then its outline resolved into a ship. One vessel. The humans called it Aegis Eternum. It dwarfed every Dominion battleship, not in sheer length but in presence, as though space itself bent to make room for it. Its armor gleamed with a dull, predatory sheen. No ceremonial banners, no ostentatious design, only brutal, functional elegance. Weapons bristled along its hull, but none fired. It simply existed, and its existence silenced the Dominion fleet. Vartel's mandibles twitched. An oversized relic. Surely they intend to frighten us with spectacle. Then the ship moved. One flicker of light, one beam that barely grazed the Dominion flagship, and its shields collapsed as though they had never existed. Systems failed in cascading silence. In the next breath, the battleship detonated, fragments scattering like embers across the void. No fanfare, no chaos. Just surgical destruction. The Dominion bridge crew stared at their displays in stunned quiet. Zarek rose slowly, his claws gripping the edge of his console. This was no bluff. This was not spectacle. Humanity had waited. Prepared. Hidden. The transmissions resumed, the same steady voice. "We warned you. Every colony you struck was chosen. Every battle you thought you won was studied. You believed yourselves predators. You were specimens. This ends here." The truth crashed over Zarek with crushing clarity. The raids, the easy victories, the slow unraveling of human resistance, it had been deliberate. A trap, bait to measure Dominion arrogance, to draw them closer to the one world that was never vulnerable. Earth had not been spared by weakness. Earth had been fortified, sharpened, turned into the spear point of a war humanity had been preparing in silence. Panic rippled through the Dominion formation. Commands overlapped, officers shrieking conflicting orders as more ships fell, each one disabled with eerie precision. The Aegis Eternum did not waste fire. It chose targets deliberately, dismantling the fleet piece by piece, like a surgeon excising rot. Zarek's composure cracked, though he fought to hide it. "Regroup. Do not scatter like prey," he barked, but his voice lacked conviction. Deep down, he knew the truth. They were prey, and the humans had finally bared their fangs. He turned toward the screen, staring at the human ship. He thought of the resistance fighter who had died clutching her weapon, of the colonies that had burned. Had it all been intentional? Had they been actors in a play scripted by their supposed victims? The thought was unbearable, and yet undeniable. Vartel, his arrogance drained to ash, whispered what no one else dared. "Admiral, they were never weak." The silence that followed was heavier than any explosion. One Dominion officer broke it, trembling. "Orders, my lord?" Zarek hesitated, his mandibles locked. Retreat was unthinkable, surrender unutterable. Yet to press forward felt like marching into an abyss. For the first time in his career, he tasted fear not of failure, but of something greater, irrelevance. His empire's dominance had been shattered by a single revelation, a single ship. On the view screen, the Aegis Eternum turned slowly toward him, its weapons cold yet infinitely threatening. It didn't need to fire again. The message had been delivered. Zarek forced his voice steady, though it quivered at the edges. "Fall back to secondary formation. Regroup beyond orbit. We must reassess." But even as the words left him, he knew retreat was only temporary. Something irreversible had begun. Humanity had shown its true hand, and the Dominion had no idea how deep that hand reached. As the remains of his fleet limped away from Earth, Zarek allowed himself one last glance at the planet below. The blue world gleamed serenely, indifferent to the empire that had come to destroy it. For the first time in his life, he envied an enemy. The unease that had stalked him since the colonies now bloomed into certainty. The war had changed. The predator had become prey, and he had only glimpsed the beginning of what humanity was capable of. The Dominion fleet limped back through fractured space, scattered wreckage trailing like the broken bones of pride. Zarek sat alone in his command chamber, staring at the replay of their defeat. He forced himself to watch every detail, the calm human transmission, the sudden appearance of the colossal vessel, the effortless precision with which his forces were unmade. Each time he expected to see weakness revealed, a trick exposed, but there was nothing. Only inevitability. Humanity had not won through luck. They had prepared for this moment with patience his empire had long forgotten. He activated the next recording, fragments of intercepted human broadcasts. The translation filters rendered the words clumsily, but the images required no interpretation. Cities engulfed in firestorms, battlefields drowned in mud and blood, soldiers clawing at one another with primitive weapons. Entire continents scarred by nuclear detonations. War after war, age after age, humans had fought themselves with a ferocity that chilled even him. One sequence showed trenches from an ancient conflict, lines of gaunt men in tattered uniforms climbing ladders into machine gun fire. They charged anyway, into certain death, not for empire, but for the stubborn refusal to yield. Zarek's mandibles tightened as the scene looped, each charge ending the same. Bodies falling in heaps, yet more soldiers following. He had thought humans fragile. Now he saw they were something worse. relentless. Vartel entered quietly, his usual arrogance stripped away. He stood for a long time without speaking, watching the same images. At last he said, "We thought them children. They are something else. They have lived with war as long as they have lived with fire." Zarek did not turn. His voice was low, almost reverent. "We mistook their chaos for weakness. But chaos was their teacher." The words tasted bitter. He remembered mocking their colonies, dismissing their resistance. Now he wondered if every defiant stand had been a lesson rehearsed, every death a seed of vengeance. The woman who had refused to drop her rifle flashed in his mind again, no longer as waste, but as warning. Humanity did not surrender. Humanity endured. The Council of Dominion leaders convened days later, the chamber filled with the sharp scent of fear masked by ritual incense. Holograms of fleet masters and ministers flickered, their voices overlapping in furious debate. Some argued the humans had revealed their only weapon, that the Aegis Eternum was an anomaly. Strike quickly, they urged, and the problem would vanish. Others trembled openly, speaking of omens, of a predator awakened. Zarek stood in the center, his figure towering but strangely small beneath the weight of their scorn. He laid out the truth without flourish. Humanity had engineered their defeats, their colonies had been bait, and Earth had been the trap that snapped shut around them. His words met a wall of denial. "You speak like a frightened hatchling," one counselor sneered. "One ship cannot unmake an empire." "It was not the ship," Zarek snapped, mandibles flaring. For the first time, his composure cracked, the memory of those ancient battlefields burning behind his eyes. "It was the people who built it, a people who have made war the marrow of their bones. They will not stop. They will not break. And if we do not change, they will unmake us." A hush followed, thick with disdain. No one wanted to believe. The Dominion had ruled for millennia, their arrogance fossilized into tradition. To admit vulnerability to a species once deemed cattle was heresy. "You exaggerate," another counselor hissed. "Fear has clouded your judgment. Humanity is a nuisance, nothing more. We will drown them in numbers." Zarek felt the futility of his words even before he spoke them again. He had become an outcast in a single battle, branded a coward for seeing what the others refused. Yet beneath the shame, anger coiled tight. Anger at their blindness, anger at himself for sharing it too long. When the council adjourned, leaving him dismissed and dishonored, he lingered in the empty chamber. The great banners of the Dominion hung above him, symbols of eternal power. They felt like lies now, brittle cloth covering rot. Meanwhile, across the stars, the humans met in their own council. Their chamber was smaller, simpler, their attire plain compared to the regalia of his kind. Yet their voices carried weight that silenced all others. Admirals and generals outlined strategies with calm precision, their language stripped of triumph. They spoke not of revenge, but inevitability, as though they had already calculated the outcome. One figure, a woman whose hair was streaked with silver, leaned forward. "They will come again. Their pride demands it. Let them. Each move they make exposes them further. We will answer, not loudly, but decisively. The days of running are over." There was no cheer, no applause. Only nods, grim and steady. To Zarek, had he seen it, it would have been more terrifying than any roar of triumph. These humans did not fight for glory. They fought because it was what they were. In the days that followed, Zarek withdrew from the pomp of his peers. He spent hours in silence, watching more human histories, searching for weakness. He found none. They had starved and clawed through ice ages, torn each other apart in endless cycles, and each time emerged harder. Their wars had forged them as fire forges steel. For the first time in his long career, Zarek admitted fear, not of death, but of irrelevance. His empire's dominance had been built on the illusion of superiority. That illusion had cracked, and through the fracture he glimpsed something vast, unstoppable. Humanity had awakened, and the galaxy would tremble. When word reached him that preparations for renewed assault were underway, his chest hollowed. They would not listen. They would throw fleets into the fire, convinced of their own invincibility, blind to the truth already written in human history. Standing alone at the viewport, he whispered into the silence of the stars, not sure if it was prayer or confession. We thought them prey, but predators learn, and hunters who do not adapt starve. The words hung heavy in the air, unanswered. Behind him, the Empire plotted its next moves with arrogance and tact. Ahead of him, Earth turned, patient and terrible, waiting for the moment to strike. And Zarek knew with grim certainty that the real war had not yet begun. The Dominion launched its counteroffensive with the fury of a cornered beast. Fleets surged across sectors, banners blazing, commanders roaring of inevitable victory. Yet beneath the bravado lurked cracks too wide to mend. Each strike met resistance that should not have been possible. Human fleets appeared where no wormholes existed, their ships striking with uncanny timing. Entire Dominion armadas found themselves outmaneuvered, encircled, or cut apart before they understood the trap they had stumbled into. Zarek watched from the bridge of his warship, numb as each report arrived. Worlds surrendered before a single shot was fired. Garrisons vanished, silenced in perfect unison. Supply lines collapsed under precision raids, carried out by machines that fought with unnerving autonomy. Humanity's war was not a thunderous spectacle of overwhelming force. It was a suffocating silence, a net tightening until the prey could no longer move. He had warned the Council, but their arrogance had sealed their fate. Now their orders to him were frantic, contradictory, dripping with desperation. Strike here, retreat there, sue for peace, annihilate them all. The voices of leaders who once commanded with godlike certainty now resembled hatchlings shrieking in panic. Through it all, the humans advanced with chilling calm. No proclamations, no boasts, only quiet efficiency. Every broadcast carried the same simple message: surrender and live, resist and vanish. And everywhere, Dominion citizens, so long taught that humanity was nothing but vermin, watched their fleets crumble, their cities burn, and their faith fracture. Zarek's own crew had grown restless. Once they had laughed at humanity's defiance, now they whispered in the dark, muttering prayers, avoiding his gaze. Even Vartel, once a pillar of arrogance, moved like a shadow, eyes hollow. "We are undone," he whispered one night, as if afraid the ship itself might hear. "This is not war. This is extinction measured by scalpel." The decisive moment came at Karen's Reach, the Dominion's jewel world, where fortresses ringed the planet like thorns. Zarek's fleet was ordered to hold the line, to prove the Empire unbroken. He obeyed, though in his heart he knew it was futile. When the human forces arrived, they did not come as a single wave. They came everywhere at once, wormholes blooming like wounds in space, disgorging ships, drones, and fire. Dominion defenses, proud and ancient, dissolved in minutes. Fortresses fell silent as if plucked from existence. And then Aegis Eternum emerged, vast and implacable. Its hull bore no scars, its weapons silent until they were not, and when they spoke, entire districts of orbital defenses ceased to exist. Zarek stood at the viewport, watching the inevitable unfold. Rage warred with awe, shame with respect. He had spent his life conquering, certain of his empire's eternal supremacy. Now he witnessed what it meant to be conquered, and it was nothing like the Dominion had ever practiced. Humanity did not revel, did not taunt. They dismantled, methodical and unstoppable. When his fleet finally broke, scattered into the void, he did not give the order to retreat. He simply lowered his head and let the silence linger. Moments later, a transmission cut through the chaos. The same human voice as before, steady and calm. "Admiral Zarek, your resistance ends here. Stand down and prepare to receive boarding parties. No further harm will come to your crew if you comply." The words pierced deeper than any blade, not because they threatened, but because they offered mercy. Mercy where vengeance was deserved. Mercy where annihilation would have been easier. His mandibles quivered, the weight of humiliation unbearable. Yet beneath it, A strange relief seeped in. To surrender meant survival. To live meant witness. And perhaps in witness, there was purpose still. He gave the order, his voice raw.
Disarm. Stand down.
We live to serve, if they will allow it. The crew obeyed in silence, some weeping, others trembling. When the Terran boarding parties arrived, they were not monsters, not gloating conquerors. They moved with disciplined precision, treating prisoners with dignity that confused more than comforted. Zarek found himself escorted aboard Aegis Eternum, its vast corridors humming with restrained power. At the heart of the ship, he met the human commander, a woman with eyes as cold as deep space. She studied him without malice, yet without pity. "You are not our enemy anymore," she said. "You are a witness. Your empire has fallen, but your people do not need to." Zarek's throat tightened. "Why spare us? Why spare me?" "Because we do not fight for pleasure," she replied. "We fight because you forced us to remember what we are capable of. We did not seek dominion, but you brought it to us. Now it is ours." Her words struck harder than any weapon. Humanity had not risen to conquer. It had risen because the Dominion had demanded it. And now the galaxy itself would pay the price of awakening them. In the days that followed, the Dominion's banners were lowered across countless worlds. Humanity did not raise cities or slaughter populations. They imposed order with chilling efficiency, their fleets a constant reminder of who now held power. Resistance dwindled not because of destruction, but because belief itself had collapsed. The myth of Dominion invincibility was gone, replaced by the cold fact of Terran ascendancy. Zarek, stripped of title but spared execution, was given an unexpected role: liaison, mediator, the voice of a conquered people to their new overseers. It was not mercy, it was responsibility. The humans wanted not slaves, but stability. And for that, they needed someone who understood both sides. Standing once more at a viewport, now within the vast belly of Aegis Eternum, Zarek stared at Earth as it spun in quiet majesty. He felt no hatred, no desire for vengeance. Only a hollow awe, the sense of standing before a force older and deeper than empire. The human commander joined him, her voice low. "We didn't want this war, but we will not turn from it. Not now. Not ever again." He bowed his head, accepting the truth. The Dominion had crumbled not because of one battle, but because of what humanity had always been, hidden beneath centuries of self-inflicted scars. They had been underestimated, mocked, dismissed. And now they were awake. In the silence that followed, Zarek realized the galaxy would never return to what it had been. The old order was dust. The future belonged to humanity, and he, unwilling though he was, would live to see what shape their dominion would take. The stars stretched endlessly beyond the viewport, vast and unclaimed. For the first time, Zarek felt not the certainty of conquest, but the weight of inevitability. The Terrans had stopped pretending to be weak, and now nothing could stop them.